Hi, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Healed and Chilled. And today we have yet another wonderful, amazing, and special guest. And you guys already know how I like to do it here. I like to have the guests have control of the narrative. So if you would, can you please introduce yourself in your own words from your own point of view, and we'll dive right into the interview.
Great. Well, thank you so much, Coach Iana, for having me. My name is Tracee Lydia Garner. I've written 21 books. 21 comes out in next week, actually, August
Oh,
5th.
congrats.
Thank you. And I've loved writing since I was a child. I've been in my campus literary magazine for my automata, too, actually,
Oh,
my high school and my other college that I went to. I'm from the Virginia area, just outside of DC, and I live in Northern Virginia on the Virginia side of the DMV. And what else? I work in a nonprofit. I was raised by God-fearing parents. My dad was a pastor for over 30 years. He's deceased now. And my
that's
mother
nice.
was, of course, the singing first lady in the choir and doing all kinds of stuff. And a really good upbringing for my life. I do have a form of muscular dystrophy that I use a wheelchair every day. And I could walk until I was about 10 years old. And then I started getting weaker and weaker and required a wheelchair full time, even from elementary school. So I've learned to navigate that, as best I can with grace, lots of
Mm.
humor. Um, that's one thing. I don't have any children, but I'm like, I can embarrass myself. I don't need children to embarrass me. I can try to do regular things physically and be embarrassed just all by myself. So I try to look at humor and the bright side and everything. I'm a
Mm.
glass half full point person, and I'm just living life. I work for a nonprofit organization right outside of DC, closer to DC than I am, and I serve people with disabilities like myself, helping them navigate community resources. And I do a lot of social security applications, which the writing has really come in handy for. So
Mm.
it's not a special skill, it's just an ability to ramble and try to justify, entitlement benefits. And
Well,
I'm
yeah.
going to do that. Yeah.
Perfect. Well, thank you for sharing. And I am from the DMV area as well.
Oh,
So
cool.
that's something that we share in common. So I'm curious, you mentioned that you started writing when you were young. And typically, what I've noticed is the things that we really like to do when we're younger are
Hmm.
oddly the things that we're called to do when we get a little bit more seasoned. So were you always writing the same type of material, or did it evolve as your life evolved and just life happened?
Yeah, I think I have a couple of inspirations for my romance. My mom and dad, I always tell people I had a wonderful love
Oh.
story, and I didn't really know it at the time. So I think just living life, you really have to get
Mm.
some experiences in order to write about things. You have to, if you want to write about, people dying and living life and grief, you have to go through
Mm.
something. You can't just, when I was writing a story, the only story I can really remember is one of the teachers was after me. We were doing some kind of collection of stories, and she got mad at me because I had a character named Nincompoop in my story. So obviously those were not of any real lived experiences. Those were just something fun, and
Mhm.
probably more so to aggravate her, to let me do what I want to do and not try to editorialize me and my writing. I'm just a kid. She got
Right.
over it, and Nincompoop, he survived, he or she survived. I don't know who it was, but so as I got older, two things happened. I understood that my parents had a great love story. They were high school sweethearts. They
Oh,
went to
wow.
prom with different people, and then they left together. Like, what kind of cute story is that? Like,
Yeah.
why would you talk to other people that were jilted? And then I also met someone in college who couldn't handle the fact that I had a disability. And so I
Mm,
think that putting him into my book and making him this like alpha male who could accept anything and was like down for whatever, and
mm,
disability was no issue to him, because I do have characters now that have disabilities. I had a character who had almost like vitiligo. It wasn't vitiligo, but
mm.
the hero didn't know that. He actually thought she was white because she was burned badly in a fire on her
Oh,
face.
wow.
So the makeup that she used, actually, she had to go with a lighter makeup that kind of gave her, and she had really cool hair. She had like almost reddish orange hair and orangish hair. And people don't see a lot of black people. There are black redheads, right? Like people
Mm,
need to get out more and meet more people. So that was one. And then I had another heroine that had a heart condition. And she's married to they got married, she got married to her hero was a football player. And just imagine the kind of weakness and also the strength. And so
mm,
I'm drawn to stories that you don't think he would go with somebody. She's cute and all, she has a heart condition, but she's like, substantially weaker. He's athletic. Not all
mm,
athletes want to date other, looking, strong looking athletes. So I wanted to depict those stories. So that kind of came to a head. Also, I guess the third inspiration was I was failing math for liberal arts really bad. And I didn't
mm,
know what the teacher was talking about. I was like, dude, what are you talking about? I have no idea what's going on here. What is that? Looked like some kind of hieroglyphics on the whiteboard. And I'm supposed to solve that? I don't know. So I would kind of disappear into my own world and start to write
mm,
stories. And I actually won a contest while I was in college at 24 years old. And I would print my story because I didn't have a printer that could print that much, and ink was so expensive. So I would go to
mm,
the computer lab back in the day when we had computer labs and print my story off and kind of take it home and edit it and then fix it and bring my little thumb drive when I got to school the next day, to keep working on my story. So it's a form of escapism for me.
mm,
It's a way to, live out some things vicarious through my characters, but it's also a way to give them real problems that they
mm,
also have to come overcome with insecurities, doubt, being rejected, all
mm.
kinds of different things that I give to my characters and kind of help them overcome while I also overcome my own obstacles and barriers in life.
Absolutely. And so sometimes I've noticed like when we're creating, and I'm more of a visual artist, but
Mhm.
sometimes once I finish something, I realize that I have a sense of relief after the painting is done or something is finished. Like I might start out feeling heavy, but by the time I'm done, it kind of feels like, like, okay, now I can exhale. Do you notice some of that like in your writing pieces where it's a healing space, or does it take until it's finished for you to feel like, okay, now I can breathe a little bit?
Yeah, I totally feel that way. After every single book, I actually have a good cry.
Mm.
I'm saying goodbye to people that I've been with. This book that is coming out in August, it was like 2 years. And a weird story is the book came to me so good. I actually wrote 50,000 words for National Novel Writing Month in
Oh,
13
wow.
days. And then I did
Ooh.
nothing. I actually ended up, winning. You win National Novel Writing Month. You don't get anything but a little certificate you can display somewhere that you won. But the goal is to write 50,000 words in 30 days in November. And I think they do one in
Wow.
April too. So I wrote 82,000 words in a month. And then the
Wow.
story, it's like I burnt out or something. And the story, and then I really wanted to finish the characters, but yeah, I almost have ritualistic things, a good cry, say goodbye to the characters. You feel like, wow, it's done. But my characters don't let me live. They don't want me to have any downtime because as soon as I finish, I actually have 9 or 10 books in the queue. They're
Oh,
all at different
wow.
stages. They're all 20,000, 50,000. The next one I might work on is already at 60,000.
Oh,
So
wow.
words, and my novels are about 90 to 100,000 words. So they already start like bugging me. You're done with them. Now it's my turn. But yeah, you
Mm.
definitely should have, some rituals and things that you do, some release. You definitely should make yourself take a break between projects, and you're releasing them not only from your being and what you're birthing something. And so,
Mm.
births are difficult and hard and take a long time sometimes. So you have, and also whatever you wrote or whatever you painted meant something. There's some words in there. You
Yeah.
titled it something like, anger over bridges. You might have like a bunch of bridges and like half of the bridges are set on fire or something. I don't know. But it's everything is symbolic. Everything is symbolic about what you went through, what you've been experiencing. And so yeah, definitely have those moments of relief, of
Mm.
kind of releasing them. You're also releasing things to be criticized by others.
Yeah.
You can't hide it under the tarp or whatever you have. Me publishing a book is
Mm.
putting it out into the world for people to be judged. And that
Yep.
can be hard and that's scary. You think people just think we just put out books and put out books and we read the reviews. We know what people say, even though we try not to or say we don't.
Yeah.
We are kind of lurking in the shadows. People
Hmm.
who make movies go to their own movies, wear a ball cap, and sit in the back and see how the audience reacts. So you're putting yourself out there to be judged, and that's also difficult, depending on what they say. If it's
Yeah.
all glowing, then wonderful, but it's never all glowing. I'm sure you did a good job, but somebody is not going to like it.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that it's just you said that so beautifully because when we do put out our pieces, it feels kind of like it's like a piece of you. It's like I also
Mhm.
don't have like biological children, but I would imagine it's like, okay, you're giving a piece of you like a baby to the world,
Mhm.
and you never know how they're going to interpret it. And it's interesting, like you can get 1,000 great jobs and you get one. "Mm," and then
Yep,
that's the one that tends to stick out more. But as
it
creatives, we
does.
just have to know like that's their opinion. That's how that might not even be how they feel. That might just be a hater who's quick with their
Yes.
thumbs and just mad at themselves or mad perhaps that, especially with the way that you speak about your characters, I'm sure it triggers emotional responses in people. And sometimes, unfortunately, people are not ready to address things, and when you highlight it, then they might come off offended. So I'm
Right.
curious to know, like, in terms of like emotion, is there a specific emotion that inspires you to create more than others? Because some creatives, when they're feeling angry, or like when I'm angry, for example, then I can create a lot. When I'm feeling good, I can create a lot. But so in terms of painting, but when I'm like in that middle feeling, then I
Hmm.
personally don't have much inspiration. I have to have an extreme emotion for me to feel purposefully inspired to paint specifically. So, is
Hmm.
there an emotion that connects most with you that you feel like, okay, I have to write versus like I'm writing just because I feel like it?
No, it's definitely a mental health solution for me. Back to what you were saying earlier, I have to write no matter what. I don't write every day. I'm
Mhm.
not from that school because people write every day. They sometimes just go for a word count of 600 words and they check it off. It definitely should be more routine than I probably do it. But when I sit down to write, I can write 10,000 words in one sitting.
Mm.
So, you can't always subscribe to what they say you should do. And the other
Mhm.
thing is that I try to have a book out at least one a year, but it really hasn't been going that way in the last few years, due to illness, due to different things. But
Mm.
even when I'm ill, I have an urge to be creating, to be doing something. When I'm ill, especially, I do dictation a lot. And that
Mm.
still helps me to feel like I'm being a little bit productive. Before I go to sleep, I can dictate laying down because I can't write or use the computer when I'm laying down, but I can pull out my phone and send
Mm.
myself an email, and that's usually what I do and turn on the mic. I can write anywhere from 2,000 to 4,000 words just
Mm.
before I fall into sleep. So, but I have to write. It's not driven by any emotion, especially when you're writing romance. You don't really,
Mm.
and you're not in a romantic situationship. So you got to pull it from somewhere. I really pull it
Mm.
from where I would like it to be, if I could have it and try to come up with different scenarios just from my imagination
Mm,
and stuff like that. But no, I'm not emotionally driven. I'm more driven as if I don't do this, I'll feel kind of pent up, like I
mm,
need some kind of outlet. And I actually started first writing poetry, and that was a way for me to also deal with my disability, and that's what got published in my campus literary magazine was poetry. And
oh,
then
wow.
there was a contest online, and like I said, I submitted to that, and that's how I really got my foot in the publishing door. So I just write because mentally it's so important. And I only recently started journaling again. I used to journal all the time, but I think I would kind of tear it up, afraid that someone would find it, if I was talking about
Yeah.
somebody unfavorably. But now I actually journal in Notion. So I just write a little monthly reflections. I do what I
Mm,
call journaling light. And also for memory keeping, your memory, is like the first thing to go. And you can just read over, like, what did I do? So I just kind of write about the highs and lows of the month. And that's my
mm.
like journaling light exercise. And it's really fun to look over the things that you've done and participated in. So I encourage people to kind of journal and don't worry about it being, a BITCH session. Just journal and just go with it and have fun.
Absolutely, absolutely. So you mentioned that your 21st book is coming out on the 5th, which is like so fantastic. Can you
Mhm.
walk us through like what the first 20 look like and just like what the 21st and are they connected and just like how
Mhm.
does how does it all come together?
Yeah, so I released the first three books of this series around 2017 or so, and I had three
Oh
books.
wow.
This book is about five brothers who were adopted by the same family, and the first book is when Mama G is the matriarch of the family. She's dying of cancer, so the boys begin to all come home to lay her to rest and to take care of her, and they all kind of meet the different women that were in their lives and what they've done. There's only four books because not all five boys turned out so great, So you always
Mm,
have one that got away, and even the boys wonder, like, how are you so far gone? And so it's kind of like a reconciliation. He's in the first book as a villain, and he's also in the last book to be dealt with,
mm,
unfortunately. So for his dirty deeds. And so I was able to wrap that up. And honestly, the fourth book only came about because a fan said, "Can so and so be redeemed? Are you going to do his story?"
oh
And,
wow.
and my brain takes off just by the mere mention of something. It's kind of like a trigger because somebody
Mm-hmm.
else has asked me about another character. And I wanted to tell her, he's dead. He's never coming. Don't ask me about him. Because her pressure on it wasn't, she didn't pressure me at all, but she was kind of like, "Can he have a story too, please?" And I was
Oh
like,
yeah.
"Well, no, get away from me." Like I really, because I felt undue burden to make
Mm,
this person so over the top because that's why she wants to see him. And it was fine when I made peace with this is how he's going to be, and whether he's over the top or he's not. That's how I saw him. That's how I'm read it. Here, eat it. Like I can't, do anything. So this book, the 21st, she asked, "Can he be redeemed?" And it's like my
mm,
brain took off and said, "Here are all the reasons why he cannot be redeemed." And kind of outlaying that. Look at the dirty deeds he's done, some things that you didn't even know that he did. So it's almost like a prequel and a back, light type of thing. So I go a little bit back and a little bit forward to
mm.
cover the last brother and what happens to him and kind of you know, the people that knew him and the family. And we get to see everybody that people loved in the series. And so I've written two series. Both of them
Mm,
are now four books long. Some of the other things I've actually written a book on self help. It's called Pack Light Thoughts for the Journey. I'm
mm,
getting ready to update with Pack Light More Thoughts for the Journey. It's about I navigate a couple different things, like dealing with my unfavorites. I write about my disability. It's not the most favorite thing, but I deal with it.
mm,
And there's a chapter in there called "Fight the Bullies," and that's about being
Mm,
bullied in the workplace and how I
mm.
handled that. I was very stressed out. My hair was falling out.
Oh my
I was
God.
also very sick and I needed to have surgery, colon surgery. So, and what I did to kind of do that, I mean, my mom got a prayer circle and that person was actually got in trouble and was fired. So, you have
Mm,
to, just different tools for different things, building a network. That's in, so I've written like mostly romance and then self-help and also a couple books on writing. So it's not all romance, but the majority of it is.
okay. And I can see that you have a real connection with your characters just like from listening to you. So where do the characters come from? Is it like a dream? Is it like I don't know how else to put it. Like is it like they're just there in your mind and your imagination, or you connected
Hmm.
to them in a different way? Just like how do the characters come to you? And then like what's that connection like?
Hmm. Well, first, I'm a news junkie, and I always think
Okay.
about people who are on the news for a blip of their life. So I kind of get to write the before and the after. I always wonder about people, and they never give you a status update. The woman. So one of my news like stories is about like John Edwards. His wife was going through cancer, and he's having a baby with another lady. So I wrote. So I wrote about a senator who actually had an affair with one of his interns and produced
Mm,
a child. Okay, and the child is in that first book in the series called Anchored Hearts. And what happens is just kind of, so I just take a little snippet of it. I didn't add the wife because I thought that was devastating. How terrible.
yeah.
But just like, what else happens to these people? These people have lives. So if
Mhm.
somebody robbed a bank, they didn't just rob a bank. Maybe you find out, like John Q. He took people hostage, but he has a sick child. And so you
Mm,
begin to uncover, and his gun wasn't even really loaded when he first took everybody hostage, and so just these little nuances, they come to me. But I also have characters talking to me in my head. One day I was having a conversation with my characters. I almost opened the door to my little office. We used to be in these little suites before
mhm.
the pandemic, and some people worked in the common area, and I worked in one of the suites with a door. So I almost opened the door and I was like, get a hold of yourself. I was thinking that I was being too loud, having an internal conversation. I almost asked this lady that sit outside my door. She ran like a financial company. I was like, was I too loud? Did you hear me? I was like, you're having a conversation in your head. She does not hear you. You're not talking loud at all. But the characters seem very loud. Like they want to do this and they want to do that. So either that's great or I'm going to go crazy and have schizophrenia later in life or something. But I choose to be positive that I'll
Right.
just have people visiting me forever. I'll get to sit with them and tell their stories, and then they will
Mm.
go and live on in people's hearts forever.
Absolutely. And yeah, I actually do that as well. Like I have conversations in my mind and sometimes I wonder like did I say that out loud or like was that just in my brain? So I totally understand that. And so something that you've also mentioned quite a few times is that you choose to have a positive outlook and I think that that is so important, especially like just with life in general and the way that everything you turn on the news or social media for 5 seconds and you're inundated with like every single horrible thing that you can possibly think of and as soon
Hmm.
as you get on. So have you always had a positive outlook on life or is that something that you developed as life?
Yeah, I think that I credit my parents. They never acted like my disability was different, I don't
Mm,
even remember when they got the diagnosis that anything changed. I think they're like, okay, thank you for that information. We're gonna go
mm,
home now. Thank you. Kind of like, yeah, I don't know what you're talking about. We're going now. Thank you so much. I feel like that's what they
right.
really wanted to say, like, you do you and we'll do us.
Mm,
So
period.
like they just had this optimistic, I never saw them fight about, caring for me or, the
Mm,
fact that we needed a van. I couldn't hardly get around, but they're not giving out ramp vans at the Chrysler company for people
right.
who use wheelchairs. And so my dad actually would pick me up a lot and just made it work. It was probably a
Mm,
detriment to him because I was a chubby child, but they just never complained. They just sucked it up and did it. And so I
Mm,
really think that I got that from them. Prayer is a big part of that, just asking God to help me through it, even though I have prayed to have it taken away from me. But
right,
that doesn't happen. So you're kind of stuck with it. And so you just ask them, and you're really not, shouldn't ask for something to be taken away from you. You should, I've been taught at least, that you should ask for the grace to deal with it instead of just escaping it.
right,
So that's kind of how I operate. That and I hate saying he'll never put more on you that you can bear, because when I'm going through something, you're like, okay, okay, I can't bear anymore. Thank you. Can you stop
right,
now?
right.
But it is true, when you come through something, you're just like, wow, I made it through that. And that's also another reason to journal, because I had a hospitalization in April for 9 days. I was in the hospital, and that
Mm,
seventh, eighth day, you're kind of like, okay, Jesus, just take me on up. I'll come be with you now. Do
right,
you need a writer? I'm available to come up and, write whatever we're having for breakfast in heaven. But I got through it, and also write it about that, how tough it was, what I
mm,
did. I actually went to physical therapy, and nobody told me to go to physical therapy. No doctors, no, I just decided on my own that I would go.
mm,
And so it's just, you really have to push yourself. You have to make yourself do things,
mm,
and just get a grip that this is not the end. This is
right,
something to get through, and you'll be fine. And your attitude is really half the battle. I was laying around after the 9 day stay, after I was discharged, and I was just kind of like lying around, like lamenting my existence. But at some point, it's like, enough resting. Let's go now. Let's get up, wash your face. As TD Jake's daughter says, "Girl, get up." Like it's time to go. It's time to start doing things and get on with your life. You can't bemoan your existence forever. At some point, you have to rally your own troops. So that's kind of
mm,
what I did. And every time I read that passage, I'm reminded of what I went through, and that is encouraging,
mm,
because it got better.
mm. Well, thank you for sharing. That was a very, very powerful um answer. And even I was just like, wow, like really, like I want to really, really highlight that you're so powerful and inspiring. And I'm just so moved just by that specific answer in and of itself. And something that I also can see and hear and just experience is your dedication to persevering. And I think that that is so important. Um, in life in general, because no matter who you are, no matter what you're experiencing, if you live, unfortunately, long enough
Mhm.
on earth, you're gonna go
Or
through
fortunately,
some,
or
yeah, or
fortunately.
fortunately, right, or fortunately, if you live long enough, you're going to experience some interesting things to keep
Mhm.
it positive. So is your perseverance also because of your parents and things, and just like choosing to um dictate if you can't write, or choosing to keep going, choosing to journal and just continue as much as possible, to have the positive mindset and to really just stay focused on who you want to be, what you want to have, and and helping others as well. So was perseverance something that you've always had, or was that something that you developed over time, or both?
Yeah, I think you always have it. Sometimes I think you just don't recognize it as such. Most people were just going through the motions. Nobody goes around saying, "Look at me, you see me out here? I'm persevering. Thank you." People don't go around saying that, or a muscle man doesn't go around saying, "See my muscles? Look at me, I'm muscular."
Or you hope so. But
They do when they get to the tournaments and the showings and stuff, but not just every day, because that would
yeah.
be a turn off, right? Like, oh God, here comes the muscle
Right.
chanting muscle man again. Here comes the persevering Tracee. Oh gosh, get out of the way. So yeah, I think it's just in you sometimes. I think you really have to cultivate it, because you
Mm,
can become someone who is kind of like, I feel that I could become the glass half empty person, but that leads to so many terrible things. That
yep.
leads to depression. which
Yep.
leads to, medication, which leads to, suicidal ideation, I feel.
Mm-hmm.
Even so, you really have to stop yourself. And I'm not saying that medication is bad. I'm on medication for a couple of different things. But it's just, it's a tool. It's not the end
Mm-hmm.
all be all. Every now and then when I can tell my mother gets sad sometimes about what I'm going through, like when I'm in the
Mm-hmm.
hospital, it's like she's gonna die too with the way she acts. I'm like, Mom, you're kind of being dramatic. It's like, oh, I just want you to be better. I just want you. I'm like, look, you need to go watch some preaching or, go listen to
Mm-hmm.
some uplifting music, get you a song, that you
Yeah.
listen to on heavy rotation, get some words of affirmation, and people don't realize you have to build your own toolkit so you know what to go to in order to help yourself come up out of the darkness. Like there are
Yeah.
things people can do. I see a mental health counselor once a month. We just talk for 30 minutes and it's been doing wonders. So permit yourself to have the things that you need and write about things and read uplifting books, not books that tell you, you're doing it wrong. Here's 10 tips
Yeah.
to do it better. Like, I already know I'm doing it wrong. Thank you very much. Like, just find something positive, um, that can really help you and develop those resources. So you could almost look at a list and go down the line and say, okay, I'm going to read something positive. Okay, today I'm going to listen to this sermon. Okay, today I'm going to read this book of affirmations and meditate for 30 minutes. Whatever
Yeah.
it is, whatever your thing is. I don't meditate, but I watch a lot of good preaching because my dad was a pastor and he was Southern Baptist and I like the hooping and
Mm-hmm.
hollering, so you need to find things that resonate with you. And that's what I was brought up on. I saw pastors like giving each other high fives when my dad would be preaching, like, oh, you got the right one right here now, like they were
Oh, wow.
excited because, bringing in the people. And my dad had a really good choir back in the day. And just
Mm-hmm.
all these little things, you need to listen to some, get your old hymnals, old spiritual, hymnals,
Mm-hmm.
before Kirk Franklin, before, KF, like kind of like after AD or BC. So, you need to go back to the old timey stuff sometimes,
Yeah,
depending on
that's
your age.
real. That's
But
real.
some of these things don't lift you up after you get through, gyrating yourself all around on stage. Like
Yeah.
that's not where it's at sometimes. If that resonates with you, do that, you know. But
Yeah.
we got to go back sometimes to the things we were brought up on. Those things were not bad. They were
Right.
good.
Right. Yeah, that's true. Because there's sometimes where only the old freedom with the organ and things like
Mhm.
that's the only thing that soothes my soul. And
Right.
sometimes, and you're right, you have to have the toolkit, you have to have the tools, and you have to have the desire to use those things when you need
Hmm.
them and recognize like it's not a weakness to have a tool. Like I used
Right.
to be such a perfectionist, and one of the older guys that I worked with, his name was Marty. He said, "But Yana, that's why do computers have delete buttons? Why do pencils have erasers? Why do pens
Hmm.
have whiteout? It's because mistakes happen all the time, and that's
Yes.
why we're able to redo and keep it moving." So,
Hmm.
I always carry that, and yeah, I definitely agree. I'm also wondering, just because I want to give you the full space to share and speak on anything that you really want to talk about that perhaps I didn't already ask you. Of course, I do have other questions, always. But
Yeah, go
is
ahead with
there,
your questions. I don't have
oh,
anything I really want to talk
okay,
about. I
cool. I just
respond better to focus and, you know, parameters.
Oh, fair enough. I understand that too. So how have you been able to stay so positive as well? Like it's one thing to be positive like as a default setting.
Mhm.
It's another thing to know that you have these tools and songs and sermons and things or whatever someone has. It's one thing to know that those things are there. It's a whole nother thing to actively use those things when times are tough, when things don't go our way, or when health is not doing what we necessarily want it to do, or when life is just, because sometimes, like, no matter how much good you do for others, no matter how much good you do in the world, sometimes life will
Mhm.
just like hit you upside the head over and over again. So it's,
Yes.
and like when you have positivity on a default setting, sometimes you can slip into, but I do good, I'm a good person, or I do this and that. And so the positive things can sometimes slip into
Right.
like the why me space. So how are you able to, if you have those experiences, get out of that? And then just in general, how
Mhm.
are you able to stay positive when times do get a little bit more challenging to be positive?
Yeah, and make no mistake, I'm not, whatever the opposite of Debbie Downer is. I'm not like cheerleader Chandra or something, just, pumping everybody up all the time. I do have down days. What you have to do is give yourself more grace,
Mm.
to say, and also take those mental health days, PTO. I don't know why people are saving up so much leave. You're not even going anywhere. Like you are having a
Fair.
staycation, maybe. Like just why? You're working yourself to
Mhm.
death. So I do take things, and I also look for opportunities to pour into myself. Like I
Mm.
love conferences, especially like a women's ministry
Oh
conference
yeah.
or just a women's conference. I get to get coffee and I go to the cookie bar and I just try to engage and refuel at these type of events that are meant to give you, and writers conference, of course. Love
Mhm.
writers conference. Just went to one 2 weeks ago called Romance Slam Jam. It's 3 days
Oh.
virtual conference. So give yourself your paid time off. And if you don't have paid time off, just take a day. Nobody will benefit if you are, injured or hurt or just drop dead. And
Yeah.
so you have to. And I do. Some days I give myself a pass. I try to do one quarterly. And then I also do solo dates. I'll go to the movies
Mm.
by myself. I just went to see Superman. I like going by myself.
Mhm.
I don't have anybody whispering to me, about what is going on. Like, just be quiet. I'm watching the movie. Get my popcorn, get my candy, my drink, and just go in and just kind of veg out and watch the show. So people sometimes need to decompress, but they need to
Mhm.
plan it. It's not going to happen unless you plan it. So you can't just wait around for, oh, the boss let us go home at 3 o'clock today. Wow, 2 hours? You're rejoicing over 2 hours they gave
Yeah.
you? You should have just took the whole day anyway. We shouldn't have to kind of look for these little pockets of crumbs. I already
Mm.
did the majority of the work and I'm getting off at 2 o'clock. Meanwhile, I've been here
Right.
since, 7, and I get off at 4. Like they really gave you an out. So you have to make a decision to do those things for yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think people, including myself, I'm working on doing more relaxing,
Yeah.
because I have I guess it's like they're calling it like high achiever or whatever. It's like the downside of being a high
Yeah.
achiever, where it's like
Mhm.
if you're not actively producing or actively pouring into something, then it
Right.
feels like not doing anything. And so this weekend I took time to just like be a total vegetable for the first time in a while, because I
Good.
felt like I thank you. I felt like I was running on fumes, like just
Mhm.
tired all day, and
Yeah.
but also feeling like I had to stop myself so many times. Like, hey,
Mhm.
I got to do this. Well, wait a minute. It can wait until like Monday or Tuesday. It can wait until
Yes.
Wednesday or
Yes.
Thursday, but that is not easy. So, what would you say, even to me, like selfishly, this is a question for my own self, but just
Right.
curious in general, like, what would you say to someone who is struggling with just not being productive? Because to some
Mhm.
degree it's like if you don't do stuff it doesn't get done, but also if you're performing at 75% because you literally just don't have the energy, or 50%, you still can't do it even if it's done. So like what are your
Right,
thoughts
and
on
it's
that?
not done well. It's not
Right.
done to the level or standard that you have if you'd arrested first and then did it. And the other thing is
Mm.
that, I really had to deal with this with myself because I was like, I don't have any writing time. And that was because my only writing time is nights and weekends. Well, what did I fill
Mm,
up my nights and weekends with? Board service, community service.
mm,
So now I don't take any night meetings hardly at all. I'm not on any more boards except one that's ending soon. But I mean, even, and I was going out to these meetings after work. And I was
mm,
like, you don't have any time to do what you say you want to do, which is
mm,
right. Well, you have to give up. The problem with the board meetings and the things is that I've come to realize that because I'm a person with this with a disability, and anybody who has any insecurities around anything, my dignity and my self-worth was
mm,
wrapped up into community service. And it was
mm.
like, let me show you what I can do because
Wow.
I'm so wonderful. I'm the most articulate
Wow.
person with a disability you've ever
Mm,
met, and you will be better, for having me join you. I can be board president, secretary a lot, taking all the
mm,
meetings. Thank God for AI. Where was it when I was, writing, scribbling heavily? But you have to ask yourself, where does your self-worth come from?
mm.
We have people that are tied, myself included, I'm talking about myself, tied and tethered to a job, just because we don't know what we're going to do.
Mm.
And there's this whole movement. I follow these Black ladies on YouTube who are doing like a mass exodus to other countries and
Yeah.
telling you how to do that. And it's just, you have to let these things go. These things
Mm.
don't define you. And as soon as you're gone, you will be replaced. They will put your job description online before
Yeah.
you even pack up your little photo of, little Susie. Like before you can even get out the door,
Mm.
the description has um, been posted on everywhere, in LinkedIn, Indeed,
Yeah.
Monster, and just ZipRecruiter, everywhere. So, you are so beholden to someone and something and in your employment, and they are beholden to nothing but the
Yeah.
bottom line. You'll be lucky if they even come to your funeral, like, gosh,
Yeah.
just, and they'll do it just out of respect for the family or something, not
Yeah.
even because they really valued you and what you contributed. So I let the boards go. I'm trying to move on and take a break from one of my employments, but it's just so hard. Everything you ever think of is wrapped up into that, and
Mm.
mine was just too much. Like, what am I proving to these
Mm.
people, just so I can make a positive view on people with disabilities? Those
Mm.
organizations have not sought after another person with a disability at all. So
Mm.
they didn't care if you were on there or not. And then they tell you that they don't see disability. Well, it's a part of my life, and I help bring
Mm.
you into compliance so you don't get
Period.
sued. But I'm nobody and no thing.
Mm.
So be careful about what you're giving, what you're permitting,
Mm.
and how people perceive that. They don't perceive it at all. You're
Yeah.
just another person, and you're breaking your neck and your back, in order to
Mm.
do your best for them.
Wow. Very, very, very well said, first of all.
Mhm.
Second of all, I think it definitely even put into perspective my own life. And I am always so busy, always like I've been like that since I can remember. Even like in college, one of my she was a little bit off, but anyway, she was like, "Do you ever like why do you do so much?" And I'm like, because I just have
Mhm.
to. Like I have to
Yes.
do a lot. And so even now, like I'm still like that where it's like enough is never enough.
Yeah.
And I have like shiny squirrel. I'm like squirrel. And so now I've found like
Mhm.
now that I'm working with children on my own thing, that's how I started this podcast and things.
Mhm.
It's a lot easier to not go do other things just because I really love working with the children. But I'm even
Mhm.
noticing in my own self still with this, like, oh, I gotta have this, I gotta have a book, but or like a
Yeah.
coloring book, but that's not enough. I gotta have dolls too. Or I gotta have this too. I gotta do that because I gotta do
Yes.
everything. And so I'm now questioning, like, who am I trying to prove myself to with doing
Mhm.
all that? Who am I trying to prove wrong or right? And I think
Mhm.
that after this, I'm going to do a little bit more reflecting because
Yes.
in some way, being a overachiever has gotten me to so many places because
Mhm.
it's like the bar gets every time someone sets a bar, it's
Mhm.
raised. So when you
Yeah.
come behind people who have set high bars, you have to go harder and higher than what they did to
Mhm.
even be considered on a level. But it gets to a point where it's like who am I? Do the kids really need all of these things? Like
Mhm.
most kids
Yep.
just want to be seen, heard, and safe.
Yes.
And if
Mhm.
I can provide that, why can't I just be okay with that? Like what am I missing? So I really, really appreciate your vulnerability and this conversation like so much, so much, so much.
Yeah.
And I could talk to you all day, but we are coming up a little
Yes.
bit on the tail end. And I know you mentioned I do have 3 cliche questions that I always ask everybody, but I know you mentioned that you didn't have anything else you wanted to add. But just in case, is there anything that you're feeling called to say or anything that you're like, oh, I wish I would have said this, or oh, I want to add on to that before I ask my 3 cliche questions?
Yeah, I guess just back to what you were saying about there is a deficit well in all of us. And so
Mm,
we just have to work through that. And you also have to do a little bit of, I don't know, it's not really comparison, but think about how other people contribute, and that's enough for them. Whatever,
mm.
however they show up. Well, it's good, looks good to me. You see, like it, can't you see it's crooked? Like, no,
Right.
looks fine. And just be okay with that. Well, he said it looks
Mm,
fine. Great, great. So you just have to be
mm,
okay. The other thing about, and don't get me wrong, I do miss some of the service things I do. But what can happen too is when you sign up for something, you begin to resent it. You're like, why did
yeah.
I do this? And then the
Yeah.
quality of your work goes down. I'm in
Mm,
something now that the quality of my work, I mean, yes, I could blame illness. I got sick and I just fizzled out, and I'm slowly making my way back. But I was fizzling out before I got sick because I
mm,
took on this thing and then I got drafted for something else. And now I don't want to do anything and my term is not
mm,
up. So you have to be careful that you don't begin to resent something and then
mm,
just self sabotage to get yourself out of it. Like,
mm.
they are not being helped if you are just, kind of like that quiet quitting. Everybody was just doing the bare minimum. It's
Yeah.
like, no, why don't you go and find, what you really want to do? And if you can't afford to do that, you have to side hustle. My writing has been really, it is something that I do that I'm consistent with, but it still is not the main gig. It
Right.
doesn't pay enough to be the main gig. It probably may never be the main gig. I've always done writing, teaching, and speaking. And
Mm,
so, and you just have to, people have to make peace with sometimes that's what you got to do to pursue your passions,
mm,
and do them, with excellence, still do it really well. And sometimes the main gig funds the side gig in some spaces.
yeah.
And you have to be okay with that. But don't sign up for something and then fall out of love with it. And then you are just a hindrance. You're
Mm,
not helping. You don't show up to meetings. Like that's how I've kind of become. It's like, I missed that last meeting. Oh, sorry, everybody. My heart's really not into this. I didn't say
yeah.
that, but that's what I was thinking.
Mm,
Like, I'm just not that into you anymore, you
right.
know? But you never want it to get that way because that's kind of ugly and that leaves a bad taste in people's mouth. Like
Yeah.
you really have, what this part. And also word will get around to future people like, yeah, she did pretty good, but then she kind of ghosted us. Like, and your reputation is so stellar, but somewhere
Right.
along the line, you just gave up. And you
Mm,
just don't want to do that. Don't do it at all. Don't do it halfway. Just don't do it at all.
mm. Wow. I'm going to give you a well-deserved signature round of applause because
Thank
wow,
you.
wow, wow, wow. And I just think, God always brings the interviews right when I need to hear something in my own life. And I guarantee you, I'm going to be doing some journaling and some self reflecting after this one. Okay.
Good, good,
Period.
good, good.
So my three cliche questions, as much as like I could listen to you, not even talk, I could just ask you questions and listen to you for hours on end. Like
Oh, thank
really.
you.
And I'm not just saying that. I'm really serious. But so for my three cliche questions, the first one is if you can think of a time where you were in a darker space and you were younger and things and just like needed to hear a piece of advice, what is one piece of advice that you know now that you wish you knew back then?
Um, I wasn't necessarily in a dark place. I just could have done a better job
Mm,
with the thing that I was working on. And it kind of comes to like the saying, strike while hot. You don't really know what that means until you stop striking and you go cold. Like, I could have done something different with my writing career and also my job, the job that I chose versus a job that I was offered. And so looking back
mm,
now, it's like, wow, you should have chose that other way, but you're just not sure. You're not sure.
yeah.
So the route that you're on is going to be the route, but really take more time to think about it and really do strike while hot. If you are hot in a space, and might be my hot is like, this thing that you're doing is going really well. You have consistency, you have accolades and commendations. Keep doing that. Don't give up, don't fizzle
Mm,
out. Just keep going. Find a way to keep making that happen because
mm,
you can lose momentum, and so you just don't. And I've lost momentum on a couple things that if I'd have just worked a little bit harder, I could have kept my place
mm.
in the ether, kind of, or in the world. So there's that.
Yeah. Very well said. Second cliche question is, we don't know the internet works mysteriously too. So we don't know who's going to watch this, who's going to listen to this. It could literally get anywhere. So is there a person or organization that you would love to work with that could help you get to the next level of where you see your goals or where you want to be?
Um, can't think of anybody right now. I hired a book coach. I am a
Okay.
coach, and I think the coach needs to be coached at times too. And at first,
Hmm.
I thought she wasn't any good, and then a book came out, so it's like she did something. So and don't like get rid of them before you really give them a chance. But maybe a publisher at some point in time. To I don't know what kind of books. I see more self-help books. I see more romance. But I also said I'd never pursue a publisher until I retired because I've had a publisher and it was very
Mm.
stressful while working. I actually made myself sick and ended up in the
Oh,
hospital because I did so many book events in one
mhm.
summer.
Oh,
Because I had the contract, I didn't want to disappoint. So I
right.
worked extra hard. So, if
Mhm.
there's a publisher, and this, I'm not saying this doesn't exist, but you can release the books every, 18 months or so. That's not usually a thing, but maybe some of the small publishers who are still very popular have that. And there's nothing wrong with a small publisher, but the big houses want something from you, at least once a year. And that's hard. It's
Mm.
hard to sustain that and
Yeah,
it can be stressful.
absolutely. Absolutely. And for my final question, if someone wants to learn more about you, purchase your books, of course, I'll put your link in the description, but just like what's the best way to contact you or learn more like how if someone wanted to get in touch with you, how would they be able to do that? Or what's the best way to?
Yeah, the best way is just to send me an email at hello@traceegarner.com, my name. And then I'm most active on Instagram.
Mhm.
Instagram, my full name, Tracee Lydia Garner. And that's Tracy with two E's. But wherever people leave me a message, I try to stay on top of my DMs. I do respond. But I mostly post everything that I'm doing and going for on Instagram.
Absolutely. And before we end our interview, is there any last thing that you want to leave us with, close us off with, any last thoughts or anything like that?
No, I just hope that people will never give up
Mm,
on themselves. Life really does get tough and you really feel like giving in sometimes. But
yeah.
if you're still here, you still have a plan and
Mm,
there's still an itinerary for you to do stuff.
yeah.
So just try not to give up. I know it's hard. I actually understand, or I feel like
Mhm,
I understand the need to leave, the earth sometimes.
mm,
And I think more people need to be able to talk about that openly and not
yeah.
feel judged.
Yeah.
But you need to find a safe place to have those conversations. But I totally understand wanting off the island when the going gets tough sometimes, but just hang in there and keep going.
Mhm. Yes, absolutely. Well, I will say thank you so much for this conversation. I
Thank
took
you.
so much from this, and I know that anyone listening will or did as well. And I'm sorry if you can hear my alarm in in the background.
That's
That's my
okay.
phone going off. But this was truly a beautiful, wonderful conversation, and I just thank you for your vulnerability, for your honesty and your openness. And I'm definitely sending you positive vibes. And I'm excited for your journey and for your 21st book coming out on
Thank
August 5th.
you.
That's
Yay.
huge. And I'm excited for that. And for everyone listening, make sure you guys stay tuned and we'll see you guys next time. Thank you.